there be a website, wallstreetonparade.com. I've already seen a few articles from here that I liked. I think I've even done 1 or 2 videos on them. And here's another one. I'm kind of liking this site more and more. This article was posted October 29th, 2019. But it talks about the Federal Reserve, and the title is Federal Reserve Spokesman Explains How It Creates Money Out of Thin Air to Pump Up Wall Street. And it says on January 19th, 2011, the Federal Reserve released a video, which he links to, on YouTube, to quell the public uproar over its unaccountable money creation operations. The spokesman for the Fed, by the way, did you also hear this morning? Did I tell myself to do a video on that? Today's the 31st, so think a day before today. I just got done doing a video. Oh, Donald Trump, hey, he keeps yelling at the Fed. The morons don't know what they're doing. We need to go negative. I wake up this morning, the 31st. Oh, 1 hour ago, Donald Trump, 2 tweets, saying the same thing again. Basically, I'm telling you, something's going to happen with those negative interest rates at some point. Anyways, the spokesman for the Fed in the video was their senior advisor at the time, Steve Mayer, now an adjunct professor of finance at the Wharton School. The Fed was in the middle of its second round of quantitative easing, known as QE2, and Mayer states this: the Fed will not keep buying large amounts of securities on an ongoing basis. End quote. The Fed was so intent on conveying the temporary nature of its unprecedented actions that it put the that statement by Mayer on the screen. See above screenshot, as he says. Mayer then immediately adds this about the Fed: its purchases are a temporary measure to help the economy recover. Again, it's temporary. Economy needs us to recover. That's it. End of story. But the Fed's purchases were not temporary. As a matter of fact, on September 13th, 2012, the Fed announced QE3, indicating it would be purchasing additional agency mortgage-backed securities at a pace of $40 billion per month. And on December 12th, 2012, so a couple months later, 3 months later, the Fed expanded QE3 with the announcement that would, quote, continue purchasing additional agency mortgage-backed securities at a pace of $40 billion per month, and would also purchase longer-term Treasury securities, initially at a pace of about $45 billion a month. So again, let's think about that back then. $40 billion a month mortgage-backed securities, $45 billion a month, and 85 total billion Treasury securities. Again, it's just temporary. It was 2012, 2011. Look, it's just temporary. By 2015, the Fed had increased the balance sheet from, as it says, from $800 billion, $4.5 trillion, $4.5 trillion from the $800 billion it had prior. That's the number it was at prior to the financial crisis. Despite all of the Fed's promises to normalize its balance sheet, today its balance sheet stands at $4 trillion. And on September 17th of this year, 2019, it launched a new, massive money pumping operation on Wall Street's behalf. You know what's funny? I've got videos that are still up today. Hey guys, the Fed says it's going to unwind. What the hell is? How do you unwind? What is that? Well, they buy these treasuries, and then later on they don't renew the what? Where did they go? They just disappear? What do you mean they unwind? How do you unwind? You're going to bring the $4.5 trillion debt. You're going to unwind it down. No, I said it's never going to happen. It will never happen. And then they made the announcements. It's happening. We knocked off $90 billion, another $80 billion or $40 billion. Oh, they're unwinding. I said, look, this is nonsense. Keep paying attention. Watch what happens. They'll stop and they'll reverse. I don't think I need to tell you this, but it's obvious. They started reversing big time. We're only at $4 trillion. $4.5 trillion. Hey, we reversed to $0.5 trillion, man. Come on, give us some credit, Jay Snip. Oh, yeah, okay. And now you just pumped $690 billion out of nowhere back into that banking system in a week's time. There's $4 trillion. I guess it's $4.6 trillion now, is it? What is it at? Anyways, they announced QE3. There's $40 plus 45 billion a month, not 85 billion. By 2015, the Fed had increased the balance sheet to 4.5 trillion from the 800 billion it had been prior to the financial crisis. Despite all the Fed's promises to normalize its balance sheet, today its balance sheet stands at $4 trillion, and on September 17th of this year, 2019, it launched a new massive money pumping operation, again, for Wall Street. Wall Street's behalf. Too big to fail, man. Too big to fail. Today, the U.S. is supposedly still an economic expansion with an unemployment rate of 3.5%, one of the lowest rates in the past half century. And yet the Fed has reinstituted a massive money pumping operation to Wall Street. Again, Wall Street. See the following link. Fed ups its Wall Street bailout to $690 billion a week as media snoozes. I think I read that one to you guys. That's his other article. The Fed's crisis-era quantitative easing programs had something in common with the congressionally approved Troubled Asset Relief Program. Remember that one? TARP. Both were shiny objects to distract the public from the obscenely giant money funnel that the Fed was secretly providing to Wall Street through a mishmash of acronyms too numerous for anyone to keep track of. When the Levy Economics Institute tallied it all up, the tab came to about $29 trillion in cumulative loans and other forms of relief to bail out Wall Street. See Table 16 at this link. The $29 trillion includes $1.85 trillion in purchases of agency mortgage-backed securities that overlap with part of the Fed's quantitative easing operations. In the Fed video, Steve Mayer also confronts the elephant in the room. Where is the Fed getting all this money to bail out Wall Street for its greedy excesses that led to it blowing itself up? Mayer says this at 3 minutes and 42 seconds into the video, quote, "You may wonder how the Fed pays for the bonds and other securities it buys. The Fed does not pay with paper money. Instead, the Fed pays the seller's bank using newly created electronic funds, and the bank adds those funds to the seller's account. The seller can spend the funds or can simply leave them in the bank. If the funds stay in the bank, then the bank can increase its lending, purchase more assets, or build up the reserves it holds on deposit at the Fed. More broadly, the Fed's securities purchases increase the total number of reserves that the banking system keeps at the Fed. Whether the Fed's purchases lead to an increase in the amount of money circulating in the economy depends on what banks do with the new reserves and on what sellers do with the funds they receive." So what are you trying to say? It depends. Well, it doesn't go back in the system if they're just sitting on it, collecting interest from the Fed, but you still created the money. You still created trillions upon trillions of dollars. Yeah, but it's, it depends on how you... Okay. The big problem with this statement is the use of the word bank. Prior to 1999, banks were traditional depository institutions that took in federally insured deposits from mom and pops and loaned that money out to credit-worthy businesses and consumers in order to grow the U.S. economy and keep the U.S. competitive on the world stage. But in 1999, after who? Bill Clinton, Clinton administration, repealed the Glass-Steagall Act, which had kept the U.S. financial system safe for 66 years, by the way, by barring the combination of federally insured deposit-taking banks with the high-risk investment casino banks on Wall Street. The word bank had lost its traditional meaning when it came to the new conglomerates on Wall Street. And I want to add something myself. Cryptocurrency comes 10 years later, 2009, Bitcoin. If you knew then, back then, the new system that would be coming, let's be fair, and you're the club, you're these guys, you're that whole nasty system, you're one of the boys. You've known this for decades, you know how it's going to end. At the very end, one of our club members, president, his name is Clinton, he's going to allow the Glass-Steagall Act to be repealed. The Congress, of course, is going to go forward and vote. He's going to sign the bill. Yep, I'm happy with that. So again, they all know this. We're going to blow up to our banks' balance sheets and everything else, the Federal Reserve's balance sheets, the bank's profits, we're going to go crazy. People are going to get scared. We're going to get so much money, it'll make your head spin. And then we're going to get into this thing called cryptocurrency. It'll save the day when this stuff blows up. But since it's blowing up, guys, shouldn't we make it count? Shouldn't we get as much wealth and profit out of this as we can as the old system is dying? Of course. So we're going to bail out all the banks. We're going to rebail them out. We're going to tell the people, no, we're done with that. But we're going to do a side bailout that they don't even know, that didn't even get passed through Congress. There was no TARP funds. There was no vote. It just is bailing them out. We print digital money. We're not printing dollars. We're printing digital numbers and putting it into the bank accounts. Now, if they leave them there, it doesn't really affect anything. The most striking example of what these mega banks had become was revealed in 2012 when my favorite bank of all banks, criminal banks, when JP Morgan Chase, the largest bank in the country, was exposed for having using hundreds of billions of dollars from its federally insured bank to gamble in exotic derivatives contracts in London, eventually losing at least $6.2 billion of its depositors' money. What this new banking model has also done is to allow these mega banks on Wall Street to create the greatest income and wealth inequality in the United States since the late 1920s, before the passage of the Glass-Steagall Act in 1933, by using the super cheap money from the Fed to buy back their own stock, pump up their share prices, and then reward their top executives with millions of dollars worth of shares of inflated stock. To make the situation even more of a Keystone Corp face or farce, Congress has yet to hold a hearing on the Fed's latest interventions to bail out Wall Street. Nope, we're more focused on impeaching the president for stuff he didn't do. We're focused on impeaching the president with stuff we did. This is all about Donald Trump holding back funds from Ukraine in order for them to open up a probe and then giving them the funds. No. That didn't happen. We have the transcripts. We have this other guy, I forget the whistleblower's name, who basically told in his testimony, no, there's nothing wrong with the call at all. We have Joe Biden on video boasting, I told the Ukrainian president, if you don't fire the prosecutor who's looking into my son's company that he sits on the board on for fraudulent purposes, which a good attorney general should do, or prosecutor, whatever. If you don't remove him, the $1 billion in loan guarantees we gave you, we may have to we'll pull those. And you know what? I told him he had 6 hours to do it, and you know what? The next day, guy was fired. You have a man boasting about this. Why aren't you trying to do something with him? Nope. We're going to pretend Donald Trump did it, and then that's how we're going to impeach. As I always say, the stuff they are doing, these criminals, they just say, no, they're doing it. No, that's what we're going after Trump for that. And then they just roll with it like it's a fact. You just pretend it's a fact, and the idiots on the left who believe them don't want to do any research, just turn on the news. Oh, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, turn it off. No, actually get off your butt and go do some research. You'll find you're being lied to. And then you'll find the stuff I'm hearing on TV about Trump, well, they're the ones actually doing that. Wait a minute. No, but that's too much work. Don't want you to get too much work done, To make the situation even... where we go? Congress has yet to hold a hearing on the Fed's latest interventions to bail out Wall Street. This follows Congress deciding in the Dodd-Frank financial reform legislation of 2010, which was supposed to address the worst financial collapse since the Great Depression because of greed and corruption on Wall Street, to give the crony Fed the primary job of overseeing the biggest bank holding companies on Wall Street. That work is now supervised by the New York Fed, the same regional Fed bank that funneled the bulk of that $29 trillion previously talked about to Wall Street during the financial crisis, and the same Fed bank running today's money spigot. The $690 billion here, $80 billion there, $150 billion there. The same New York Fed. Concrete jungles, that's where dreams are made of. There's nothing you can't do. Out of the Fed in New York, New York. That was bad, but there will be no editing of this video because I don't got time for that. Okay? Take care.